everybody. It's Miss Street again. We're going to read a book today called Papi, How Many Stars Are in the Sky? And it is written by Angel Vigil. They wrote the words, and it's illustrated by Martin. They drew the pictures. Get close so you can see that. Sorry, trying to... There you go. It's a little dark, but it's because it's dark outside. Whenever they visited their grandparents' farm, Andrea, Carlos, and Maria gathered after dinner to listen to their grandfather's stories. On warm nights, they sat out on the porch when grandfather rocking peacefully in his old rocking chair. He always waited until it was dark to begin. Like children everywhere, the children had a favorite story, and like grandparents everywhere, the grandfather never got tired of telling it. That night was a perfect night for that story. As they looked up at the evening sky, just beginning to fill with its bright, shiny stars, the children began to chant, "Papi, how many stars are in the sky?" Let's see. How many stars are in the sky? Papi looked lovingly at every one of his grandchildren and asked, "How many do you think?" Carlos raised his arm to the starry darkness, saying, "There must be a zillion. The grandfather laughed. "Well, that's pretty close. Maybe we better count them. But first I have to tell you a story about the stars and why they're in the sky." And knowing the story was about to begin, the children pulled themselves even closer to their grandfather. Ariana nestled comfortably in his lap, and the others leaned against. Just as countless times before, Papi gazed up towards the stars and pointed his finger. You see, kids, every time a child is born, a new star is added to the sky, and that star shines forever for their child. That is why there's so many bright, shining stars. Every child is a gift from the universe, and each star tells a story of a child's life. And they listened. The children searched the starry sky, imagining all the children in the world. And they tried to find the stars that were theirs, the bright stars telling the stories of their lives. The grandfather's soothing voice continued. If you look around, you can imagine that the stars make pictures. We can tell stories about the pictures. Since tonight is a fall night, we see fall animals. See, over there is a bear that once chased your father in the forest. Can you see the ladle towards the back of the bear? It tells the story of the delicious stew your mother makes for you. Have you ever looked in the sky and saw clouds that you thought looked like something? Carson the other day saw clouds. He said, "Oh, that looks like an elephant." So that was cool. Over there's a lizard like the one I caught at the water pond. And through the middle of it all runs the bright starry patch of the Milky Way, leading you back home if you ever get lost. Knowing that their favorite part of the story was nearing, the children said, "How many stars are there in the sky?" Patiently, the grandfather began. "Well, let's count them. Ariana, you start counting." Sweet Ariana looked at the sky with studly eyes and said, Look, there's a big one." And the children smiled. The grandfather lovingly answered, "Yes, Ariana, you're so right. There's one big star in the sky." "Does anyone else want to count the stars in the sky?" said Papi. Carlos said, "I'm learning to count in school. Let me count." He counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 stars. With a deep laugh, the grandfather said, "Yes, Carlos, they are 10 stars in the sky. But if we keep counting like that, we'll never get to bed. Maria, do you want to count?" Maria counted carefully. "I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 40, 45, 50. Shall I keep counting, Papi?" Laughing softly, the grandfather said, "Well, what do you think, children? Should Maria keep counting?" But the children knew that their grandfather had reached their favorite part together. They shouted, "Papi, you count. You tell us how many stars are in the sky." With his calm voice, the grandfather said, "Look at the stars in the night sky. All my life, I've been counting the stars, and now I finally know that they are 50 estrellas in the sky." The children howled with delight. 50! There's more than 50. So he tried to trick them. He said, "I think there's 50 stars in the sky." And they said, And just as he counted times before, the grandfather shook his head, saying, "No, not the number cinquenta, which does mean 50, but the word cinquenta, which means infinity. That means there are so many stars that you can't even count them all. Your lives are like that too. There are so many things you can do or be. You can't count them all, just like you can't count all the stars. There's no limits." As he put his grandchildren to bed, the grandfather sang a lullaby to them. He sang it in Spanish, just as he had heard when he was a child. Later, snugly back in their beds, the children thought of their grandfather's story and all the beautiful stars in the sky. As they fell asleep, they dreamed of the many adventures that they could hold on to. And he said, "Sweet dreams." Next time you go outside at night, I want you to look at the stars and see if you can figure out how many stars are in the sky.